Am I allowed to swear? My golf is fucking horrible.
Dedicated to helping individuals unlock their full potential, Michael Mojo is a renowned high-performance coach, speaker, and entrepreneur by mastering the psychology of success.
It is really, really hard to be good in this industry and not project your shit onto other people. It doesn't get easier, it gets harder as you get better. I've worked with billionaires, I've worked with people that make hundreds of millions of dollars. Not one of them has ever said to me, it's fucking stupid, right?
Helping thousands of clients worldwide overcome self-doubt, gain clarity, and build the discipline necessary to succeed on their own terms.
Like, why am I doing this? Why am I playing golf? Why am I having fun? Why am I having, what's important to me?
Welcome back to the Teabaggers podcast. Today we are going where no golf podcast has ever gone before. We're diving deep into the mental side of golf with a special guest, no stranger to high performance, Michael Mojo. Michael is the founder of Mojo Human Performance Institute and the host of the Underestimated Entrepreneur podcast. He is a renowned mindset and business coach and worked with elite athletes, top-level entrepreneurs and business leaders to unlock their full potential. While Michael isn't a golfer himself, his expertise in the mental performance is invaluable. In this episode, we'll explore the principles he teaches to world-class performers that can also be applied to golf, a sport where the mental game is as critical as the physical. Welcome, Michael Mojo.
Thank you so much for having me.
Very good. Thanks for coming on. This is a very new sort of thing for the Teabaggers podcast where normally we're speaking to golfers or it's Sean and I, but I thought, obviously, after knowing you for a little while now, that the mental side and the mindset side of golf is super important to professional golfers and to amateur golfers. So why not better to have you on and chat around mindset and golf?
Awesome, love it.
We normally start with the golf questions. Now, I did say in the intro you're not a golfer. What is your golf swing actually like, and when have you last played?
Am I allowed to swear?
Yep.
My golf is fucking horrible. That's the truth. Look, I get so angry trying to putt. I'd rather just take out a driver and just smash the ball in the opposite direction. I'm definitely not a good golfer. I don't have the patience for it.
Yep.
I'm your typical ADHD, crazy entrepreneur. I just don't have the patience for it. I don't mind a game every now and again, providing it's fun and it's social and it's with my mates.
Yep.
But when I start, and also I'm hyper competitive as well. So
yeah?
when I play, I want to get out there and I want to try to do well.
But your ability doesn't always allow it.
Yeah, and you know what it's like with golf as well. The more frustrated you get, the worse everything goes. So, I just start getting frustrated. I should, everything that I pretty much say from here on out about mental performance is true for everything except the game of golf, because I haven't figured out how to tap into my own psychology to play a good game of golf yet.
Yeah, no, well, I understand the frustration. We're average golfers at best. So, but anyway, that's not what you're here for today. We're going to explore the mental and the mindset side of golf. And one of the most famous sayings around that is Jack Nicklaus, who said golf is 90% between the ears. Saying so, if that's not saying that golf's not a mental game, then I don't know what is. We're going to dive straight into the hard-hitting questions.
Yeah.
What separates the 1%? Top 1% of athletes compared to everyone else in terms of a mindset sort of?
That's a brilliant question because obviously psychology is really the difference. It's the separator. I remember when I first started in this industry, I'd come from a background where I'd worked in physical rehabilitation and sports performance and so on. And you could see the difference in the athletes that came in who just thought differently. And I remember saying back then, and I was doing some work with some of the sporting associations, and I said, the mental game is the key. That's like the differentiator. And most of them just didn't get it. They were like, we get it, but you just go out there and you kick a ball around and you got to like get fitter and be fitter and things like that. But you could really see the difference in the people that thought differently. And then obviously now working in business as well, I realized that most business problems are people problem. Like there's only two ways to grow a business. It's people and technology. So coming back to when we look at a game like golf or any game really, depending on how you use your psychology, and I think of psychology different than anyone I've ever come across. And that's the reason why I say that is if you look at sport, you can be strong, but if you don't have endurance, if you're okay playing a strength sport, but an endurance sport, you'll cap out. And so everybody knows that typical bodybuilder that's really strong and can lift heavy shit, but the moment that they go to run, they almost have a heart attack because they just can't breathe. And then you have other principles like agility, and then you have balance. Well, I've never heard anyone talk about the thought process as being that same principle, right? Some people have mental strength. Like I'm mentally strong. I can walk into the gym, be tired, lift really, really heavy shit. Whereas the thing that I have to consistently work on is my mental endurance, because I cap out really quick. I'm mentally powerful and I'm mentally strong. So I can make fast decisions. I can move quick, highly courageous, but doing stuff for a long period of time, I start to wig out. My wife, on the other hand, she's like a marathon runner. She just plods along day after day after day.
Yep.
And so she's really, really good with doing things for a really long period of time and not getting mentally fatigued. So I think no one's really spoken about that principle. But when I look at something like, let's say, a game of golf, and I know I've gone off on way too many tangents already, but when I look at a game of golf, mental endurance is really, really important, because for someone like me, I go out and play golf games. So my first 1 or 2 holes, I'm probably not too bad. But then by the third and fourth, I'm starting to get frustrated and I start getting tired and more fatigued. And that could be a symptom of ADHD as well, or whatever. But I think that the 1% know how to use those different principles. They just haven't labeled them, because I've never heard anyone label those principles as far as a psychological principle.
Yep.
I've heard it spoken about in sport or in the physical body and physiology. So from what I've seen, you can take, let's say, a CrossFit athlete, and a CrossFit athlete can get into a moment where they've got to do a highly powerful sport. And I worked with one of the top CrossFitters in the world, and he was able to get extremely angry in a moment where he needed absolute power, where he would just get on an air bike and thrash it out, and they would have to do like 10 or 20 calories. It was short period of time, maximum intensity, all in, like almost to the point where you throw up on the bike as you're riding. He would get into that mental state, go and rest, go and relax, reset again, and then come back out and do an endurance, something where he had to be completely calm and completely relaxed. Because with endurance, if you've got big adrenaline pumps, adrenaline is something that mitigates pain. So if we have to do something that's really painful, adrenaline's beautiful for it.
Yep.
So you can get stressed out, you can amp yourself up. But when it comes to endurance, you don't want that big adrenaline pump, because then you get a big adrenaline dump and you're going to get fatigued.
Yep.
So what I find the best athletes, the best business people, they're able to tap into that, whether they know it or not. And then they're always working on it. Like, it's a fundamental principle that if you know something, you have to use it, and you've got to use it consistently. But I also think, and this relates to golf and life in general and business, if you enjoy what you do, it makes everything so much easier. It makes the mental game so much easier. If you have to force yourself to do things, it makes things a lot harder. So normally the best athletes do what they love, even though they'll complain, because business owners will say, I fucking hate business and this is bullshit, when they're stressed. But the reason why they keep doing it is because they actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think any athlete is the same. You'll have periods where you're just not playing well, or you're frustrated or whatever, but they actually love playing the sport. They love the training. They love everything, because I believe that you can't have an upside without a downside. And so, there's always going to be challenges, adversities and shit that we got to go through, but people who love it will go through it and come out the other side and keep going.
Beautiful. Yeah, so I was talking to a pro golfer the other day, and I was actually telling him that we were going to have you on the podcast, and I was telling him who you were and what you do and things like that. And he sort of brought to my attention that golf's probably one of the only sports where you will make a swing, and then you've probably got 5 minutes between your next bit of action. You've got to watch your other person have his swing, or you've got to walk up to your ball and make a putt. So there's a lot of time in between the actual action, where a basketballer shooting, come off, speak to the coach, go back on, and it's a lot more free-flowing action. So there's a lot of time mentally in your own head between shots and your whatever you're doing. Is there some approach to training your mindset around that time in golf where you could literally start going anywhere with your mind?
Yeah. One of the best things that people can do, if you do have those times where there's gaps, and even if the period of time is short, one of the best principles I've come across, and I interviewed one of the world's top sports psychologists when I was in Miami, and he was Shaquille O'Neal's sports psychologist, and he worked with the Jamaican athletic team and everything like that. Actually, I was only speaking to him yesterday. And it's such a simple principle, and you can tell people, but they won't do it anyway because it's so simple, and that's just to breathe. Breathing is probably the best thing to center yourself, and there's different breaths cause and evoke different hormonal responses, and they impact the brain. So for example, when we take a deep breath out for a longer period of time than the inhale, that puts us into more of a calm state. So at nighttime, you'll notice when you're just lying on the couch and you're chilling, your breath will change to where you have longer, deeper exhales. So it's a calming effect. On the other hand, big inhalations are more of an excitatory response. So let's say I hit a really bad shot and I'm getting stressed and frustrated. That's exciting my nervous system. So what I want to do is use my breath and bring myself back into balance by taking longer, deeper exhales.
Yep.
And I think that's probably the most simple way. The other thing you can do is you can practice things like meditation. The challenge that I have with meditation, and because I work with a lot of high performers are a different kettle of fish. As you know, our community is called the driven mofos.
Yep.
Because driven people, they put a lot of pressure on themselves. They're highly ambitious. They don't like sitting around. They're always trying to push the limits. It's hard for someone to just sit there and think of nothing for 5, 10, 15 minutes. Most of them just want to go insane. It makes them more angry meditating. But if you are a bit calmer, you can practice that. I just think breathing is just such a way better way of bringing yourself back into balance.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know about you, Bear, but I probably played, I don't know, a couple hundred rounds of golf, and I've never actually concentrated on any breathing or anything. I just get frustrated and angry and start looking at my club and I want to stretch it. So next time we start thinking about that, let's concentrate on our breathing and see how that goes.
Yeah, I like that.
It's one of the most simple. Human behavior is such a weird thing because humans are very predictable, even though most people think that there's no predictability there, like that humans aren't predictable. But AI is proving that humans are so fucking predictable. Like if you have a look at marketing, you can pretty much put an ad in front of the right person at the right time because it knows what you do.
Yep.
Humans are very, very predictable. And if you tell most people just to breathe, they will go and look for the most advanced, most complicated shit in order to try to, enhance their psychology instead of using stuff that they've been using for thousands of years, like meditation, breathing. There's a lot of stuff that's coming out with breath work and all that. Most of it's a bit wanky and a bit trendy, but I mean, the truth is that we've been breathing since the day we were born, and the day we fuck it up is the day we're gone. So
it's pretty important, isn't it?
It's pretty important, but it does help us to balance out our autonomic nervous system between our stress response, which is a flight, fight, and fear response, or a flight, fight, and freeze response, which is an excitatory response, and then the inhibitory response, which is our sort of rest, repair, and digest response. When you're playing a game like golf, you probably want to try to be as balanced as you can because it allows you to sort of be more focused. If you get too excited, you get too amped up, you're probably just going to try and smash the ball as hard as you can. Sometimes that might be a good thing, but and you don't want to be too just chilled out and calm, or else you'll probably put no energy or effort into the swing. So
yeah, that's great response.
Yeah. So golfers are obviously always thinking when they're on the course, when they're off the course, and when you're thinking about your game, you're thinking about, oh, I did this bad, I need to do something different. Everyone wants to tinker with things. We're always trying to improve each other's swings and we don't know what we're talking about. And pro golfers or all-level golfers they need use a new putter because they think their putter is the problem and things like that. How can a sportsman release themselves from like the analysis paralysis and just trust their instincts when they're playing rather than, keep overthinking it all?
Yeah. It's a great question because I don't think that that's just a golfing problem. I think that that's just a general human problem. And I think when we're under stress, we tend to over-exaggerate certain responses and under-exaggerate certain other ones. So in that, we'll think that things are worse than what they are if we're stressed. And we won't see how good certain things are. So our brain changes the way we see things or perceive things. First of all, there are a couple of basic principles that I love using. The first one is something called the Pareto principle or Pareto's law, and that is the 80-20 principle. And I talk to my team about this every day because they'll go, hey, we should change this and do this. And I go, cool. What's the 20% of things that are going to make the 80%, the biggest impacts? As you know, in business as well, like 20% of the customers produce 80% of the sales. So they're your top customers. If you just look at a golf game, you go, okay, well, if I need to improve something, what's the 20% of the thing that's going to improve 80%? Instead of looking at the whole thing and going, well, how do I improve and put 80% of my effort into something that's only going to improve at 20%? I mean, I could go out and buy the world's best golf clubs and still be a shit golfer, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah, 100%.
There's a whole market built on that.
Totally. So we got to really look at like what is actually the problem, and this is really challenging for a lot of people in human behavior, because to identify the problem, you've really got to look at what's the actual issue. So I assume if your swing's off and something's going in the wrong direction, the first thing that I would look at is, okay, first things first, am I following the basic principles? Because everything has basic principles. So am I following those basic principles that are going to get me 80% of the results? And then the next thing is, let's look at the psychology. I'm going off on another principle. But if I look at 80-20, there's another one as well. Everything is really skill set and psychology or mindset, skill set, mindset. So if the skill set is good, then it has to be a mindset problem. And this is where pro golfers or pro athletes fuck up a lot, because they're thinking it's a skill set, it's a skill set, it's a skill set. But as you know, if you hit more balls and you're frustrated, it just makes you more frustrated if things aren't working. So it's a mindset problem. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the 80-20 principle. What's the 20% of things that we can do to improve 80% of our game? Yep. And then the next thing is identify, is it a skill set problem or is it a mindset problem? And then we can sort of try to fix which one it is. And it might be both, it might be one or the other. Most of the time, though, most people just try to fix everything all at the same time, and it just creates more stress, more frustration. The more frustrated you are, the worse you play, which then makes you more frustrated. Hope that gives some sort of foundation.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things on a golf course that you come across as golfers all the time is the risk versus reward. Are you going to, pull out a driver and hit it over water and, be on the green in one, or are you going to pull out an iron, hit a 7-iron, chip it along the ground and take your time? How do you coach sort of people that make higher stakes decisions that, the safe shot's going to be comfortable for them, but, the big play could probably change their life, because you could win an event and then go on to the next event, make more money. How do you sort of coach around, high stakes decision making?
For me personally, when I'm coaching either an athlete or a high-level business owner, or it could be, a musician or something like that, what I'm going to look at is a few different perspectives. The first thing is that the better you get, the more reps you put in at anything, the better you're off at playing high stakes.
Yep.
Because if I was out on the golf course and I'm trying to figure out whether I should use a driver or, what iron I'm going to use and should I hit it here, I have no fucking idea because I don't play a lot. So it really doesn't matter. I just have to pick something and just have a crack. Then once you get data, then you go back and you look at the data. So you review the game. After the game, you sit back, and this is if you haven't had too many beers, because if you have and you're at the end, everything gets a little bit blurry and maybe the shot looks way better than what it actually was. And the game's more fun as well. But if we're playing at a professional level, we want to now look at, okay, let's review the data and the thought process. So whatever decision you make, it's not right or wrong. I really hate the idea of people thinking that decisions are right and wrong, because you can make the right decision at the wrong time and you still get screwed.
Yep.
Business owners know this all the time, right? Right decision, wrong time, wrong economy, whatever, you still get punished for it. You can be an absolute moron and make the wrong decision in the right market and you can still win. Yep. I mean, this happens all the time, right? Like people who have no idea investing money in crypto when the market's just going straight up and they look like they're superheroes. And then they're giving everyone financial advice. So the first thing we want to do is, if we're an amateur, we just have to test. And then we're gonna figure out what works for us. Then we've got to go back and we've got to review. So we're always going to review. Why did we think that way? How did we get to that decision? What was our thought process behind it? And then maybe next time, let's try the different decision and see which one works better, and then we can fine tune it. I tell my team all the time, like, if we don't have data, just throw shit at a wall and see what sticks. Then after that, then you start testing things. So I think that mindset helps quite a lot. But if you're a pro golfer, 100% review. And then after that, the next thing we got to look at is, what's the mindset going into it? Because you may have made the right decision, but you're in the wrong mindset. So if you're just like in a fuck it mindset and whatever, your swing might be off. I would normally sit with a person and go back and review those moments and have a look at what was actually going on there and really hone in. Mindset, skill set, how do we come up with a decision? I'm not a professional golfer, just like, when I'm working with someone who is let's say a rich lister, their business skill is so much more advanced than mine. So I'm not going to be able to give them the business advice, but what I can do is we can go back and really hone in how they're thinking through the decision, everything like that. And that's the game changer. So I hope that gives some sort of answer. It's challenging because I don't like giving black and white answers because it stops people from thinking. I don't tell people what to think, I make them think. So I teach them how to think. And I think when you're an athlete or when you're playing any sort of sport or when you're in business, learning how to think is the most important thing, because it's all on your shoulders. And especially the game of golf, even though you have a team, it's an individual sport. You got to sit there in your own mindset, thinking your own thoughts. So I'd really be trying to think, how do we optimize that thinking process when you're out there by yourself? How do we come up with the decision that we came up with? How did you choose that club? Why did you choose that club? And then let's maybe test something out next time, see if it works differently.
So having a bit of clarity around what you're doing and what you're doing it for and things like that, obviously really important.
Well, a framework that I have, and you guys have come across this, I assume from just starting to do some of my programs, there's a framework that I have, which is, it says clarity times by standards plus environment equals success. So the first thing is you can't have high standards if you don't have clarity. If you have a look at anybody, it doesn't matter what they do, the moment that they lose clarity is the moment that standards drop. So the first thing is we've got to go, if our standards are dropping, were we clear on the decision? Were we clear on what we're trying to achieve? And so we've got to clear up that part first. The clarity comes before the standards. If people are clear, then they have high standards. And then the only other thing that's going to drop is the environment. Is the environment impacting those standards as well? And so you just got to work through that thought process.
Very good.
Nice. There's a lot of external pressure or perceived pressure in golf. So it's not just your own personal pressure, but it's the stuff that goes on with everyone else. I mean, if you think about pros, there's a lot of online noise and a lot of people that have opinions and they know everything. I think the most nervous Dale and I ever were for a round of golf was the first time we played with a pro on the best course in Adelaide. We was silent the whole way there. We were so nervous that because of a perceived pressure that we'd sort of come up with in our own head. How can you release that or block that external pressure out and still just stay within your own head? Like, what's some tools that we could use to go, you know, you might be walking up to the first tee and there's a crowd and you think, oh no, when it's just another tee shot, right?
Yeah.
But you build it up in your own head. What's some things we could do to try and block that out and just stay in our head?
Great question. Blocking it out is hard because it's there whether you like it or not. So to block it out is almost impossible. The way that I would work through it is, first of all, there's another framework that I really love thinking through things is like there's purpose and there's intention. So if you're going out to have a hit of golf with a pro golfer, the first thing is like, what's the purpose? Like, why are you there? And when you ask that question, like, why were you guys there?
Just to meet him. Have fun.
Cool. That's it. So if you're meeting him and having fun, then the question is, are your actions and your thought processes aligned with that?
No.
They weren't, were they?
I wish you had told us that before we drove there. Shit ourselves.
And then we ended up being mates with him for fucking ever. Still mates with him, and he's just a normal lad.
The outcome was achieved, but the perception on the way, we're beside ourselves.
This happens all the time in so many different areas. Like you take, let's say, a mother with kids, and I know this is off the topic of golf, but people can relate to it. You take a mother with kids, she wants to go away and have a great holiday and everything like that. Yet she's overplanned it and everything has to be perfect or whatever. She can ruin the whole experience of the holiday and spending time with kids because she's so planned and thought out and everything. And there's so much pressure that she's self-created. When the truth is, if you just go, okay, purpose and intention. The purpose is I just want to have fun with my family. Doesn't matter if shit's planned or not. See how easy it becomes because you've identified the reason. If a professional athlete goes, well, I have to win. That's a pretty fucked up purpose because you're playing with a whole bunch of other factors. No matter what I do in life, you can never really win if your focus is winning because it puts the focus on something outside of yourself. If I'm playing a game of golf, and again, I'm not a golfer, but I'm just using the analogy, the only thing I could think about is the shot. So how can I get the ball to the place that I want to and control the controllables? So in life, you can only control the controllables.
Yep.
Outside of that, everything else is influence. So in business, I can influence you guys to be better business owners by thinking differently and so on, but I can't control that. There are plenty of people who say, you know, I want to grow my business and all that, and you take them on board, and their actions and behaviors and thoughts don't even match that at all. And I used to get emotional and frustrated when I would be working with people. And part of that was, you know, the controllable that I can control is make sure I take on the right customers. So I pressure test people before they come on board and make sure that we're aligned. But I can't control whether someone gets a result or not. I can influence whether they get the results by my communication skills and by a whole bunch of other factors that I'm competent at. But outside of that, there's nothing else I can do. As you know, with kids, you can't control your kids. You can influence their behavior, but you can't control it. They've got their own little brains and they're figuring shit out themselves. And the more parents try to control their kids, the more freaked out they get, the more stressed they are. And this is where you meet those full stress head parents because they're trying to control an uncontrollable. So when I'm working with an athlete and when I'm working with anyone in sport, it's always, let's go back and figure out what the controllables are. You know, did you prep correctly? Did you get good sleep? Is your diet on point? Your mindset on point? Although, there are plenty of athletes who don't have good diets, but they still perform well because their goal is to just go out and have fun, and they have fun, and that's why they play well.
Yep.
The moment that they take away that fun, the moment they play shit. Dennis Rodman was a great example of that in basketball. Like, he had to be loose. If he wasn't loose and didn't have his space, he couldn't play well. Yeah, I think it really comes down to intention, purpose, make sure everything aligns and keep focusing back on that. And then after that, you got to go to what are the controllables. I also think that works in any area. Like, when I speak to business people, they're so stressed out and frustrated because they're trying to control markets and cash flow and all of this stuff. The truth is there's so much uncontrollables in there. The question is, why'd you start a business? Why are you here? Like, for me, my purpose is to have fun. Like, I want to enjoy life.
Yep.
The moment it stops becoming enjoyable, the moment it becomes a burden, a pressure, a weight, most of the time, all of our pressure is just self-created.
Yeah.
Even as you guys know on social media, and you were talking about the social media and the noise, with athletes, they're having to deal with everyone else's bullshit. But the thing is, they're trying to control an uncontrollable. Pro athletes, they get to a point where they realize that it's all just fucking noise, and then they just get on with it because they realize every dickhead in the world has an opinion. And most of the time, the people who voice their opinion on things like social media are just dickheads. The people who you need to listen to probably aren't putting their shit in the comments anyway. They're not the ones who are making noise. It's not the media, like the media and all that type of stuff. They can say whatever they want, but they're not out there playing.
Yeah.
And so again, you just got to control the controllables, and most of the pressure is just self-created from uncontrollables.
Yeah, cool. That's a perfect answer there. All right, so one of the things with golf, pre-shot routines, putting especially is really important, and with the driver it's really important, but also golfers are very superstitious. How do you draw the line between helpful structure and things like that and superstition?
Shit, I've never been asked that question before. I've never even thought about it. Like, this is awesome though. Yeah, because I never get asked these questions. I've done probably thousands of podcasts. What I would do is sit down with them and go, okay, run me through the superstition and the thought process behind it. Most of the time, it's just a feeling that they're trying to get. They want to have a feeling that they're in control. Like, if you think about what a superstition is, it's trying to create something external from yourself to make you feel like you have control, or you've got some form of safety, or you've got some form of certainty. That's all it really is. Yeah, I mean, it's been around for thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people fucking wave smoke everywhere, and they have these rituals and things like that. But when I look at it from a psychological point of view or an emotional point of view, they're just trying to create some form of safety and certainty and structure around themselves. Then what I would ask is that a benefit or a hindrance?
Yeah.
And when you ask that question, you watch the light bulb go off a lot of the times. Because I only interviewed on my podcast Josh Saunders, and he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fastest person in history to get a black belt. He just fought Gordon Ryan, the GOAT, and did a really good job with it. The guy's insane. Like, he's unbelievable, and his mindset is unbelievable. And he said, if you've got to have your lucky jock strap, the day you don't have your lucky jock strap is the day you've already lost in your mind before you go out. And he goes, I just don't play into that. Like, whatever's going to be is going to be that day.
Yep.
And I've just trained myself, like, whatever the conditions, you just got to be ready for them. That's why you train. Like, you train to put yourself in different environments that could potentially come up during the game, which is why you're a pro, right? Yep. And I would say that that's probably pretty true too. Yeah, it's just trying to control uncontrollables and make you feel safe and certain
100%,
and whatever.
Like,
I don't know that being a scientific person, but also having studied a lot of like philosophy, religion, spirituality, all of that stuff, and studied them in depth, like more in depth than probably 99% of the people who run around talking about it. Most of the time, all of those superstitions are just them just trying to control uncontrollables and get certainty and things like that. When you break it down and you look at it from a point of view of like physics or quantum theory or whatever it is, people use a term like energy or whatever. None of it really makes sense. So yeah, I think it's just a mindset and a psychology and a feeling. You can have that without all of that shit.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm not the most superstitious.
Well, your
person.
footy career you had your lucky jocks and you were a good footballer. So I wonder how much it was the jocks. I always thought it was his jocks.
Were they a typical like bloke set of jocks with holes in them?
Pretty much the holes. They were fully ripped ones. The
Couldn't leave home without. Like, talking about that, how would you think if you were to see a golfer, like, would there be some signs that they're mentally like affecting their own game? Like, what would be affecting their performance or sabotaging their performance mentally if you were to sort of witness someone playing, I don't have my lucky jocks and I'm nervous. Like, what are some telltales that someone's sabotaging themselves?
Is this for all the gamblers out there who are going to start watching for them now? They're like,
there's lots of golfers out there that are gamblers. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Okay, depending on the sport, and if we're specific with golf, I just think about it from, okay, let's think about what's going to make a good golfer, and it's someone who can control their emotions. If let's say they're a boxer or an MMA fighter, same sort of thing, but they, at some point, they need to have a bit of like emotional intensity because they're getting punched in the face and things like that, so they need to have some adrenaline when they get into the cage and things like that. But what I would be looking for straight away is, how do I control the emotional shit that's going on? The calmer they can be and the less they can remove emotion, the more they can remove emotion, the better they're going to play. Because golf, from my perspective, is an emotionless game. It shouldn't be something that you get excited about, because if you're excited, you're probably going to, overswing or overhit or whatever, because it creates a lot of power and a lot of force and a lot of energy. But you don't want someone who's depressed and down as well, because you're going to undercook it. You just want someone who's pretty much neutral and can think through, like, what are we doing here, and just enjoys the game. Having studied a lot of the great philosophies, almost every great philosophy that I've ever come across talks about this idea of love. And when they talk about love, they're not talking about love in the term of passion. And I know I've gone way off on a tangent. I'm going to probably freak out half of your listeners. But if you look at the etymology, which is the history of the word passion, passion means to suffer. And most people mistake passion for love. Love is a balance of both sides. So when you love something, like when you love a sport, you take the good with the bad. If you love business, you take the good with the bad. And anyone who's in an intimate relationship or has kids, you love your kids, but they're your greatest nightmare and your biggest dream as well at the same time, right? When you're playing a sport or when you're doing anything where you actually want to be a pro, number one, you've got to love the game. Because when you love the game, you take the good with the bad. And that keeps you centered. So if you're emotional and you go, well, I want to go out and have a hit of golf and today's going to be a great game and I'm going to like do all this amazing shit and I'm going to feel really, really good, you'll be excited and it probably won't be as good as what you want it to be. And you'll start to hate the game. When you're depressed and down, you think, today's probably going to go shit because the weather's bad and all that, you're not going to enjoy the game either. People who always do the best and perform the best, a lot of them don't label it as love, but I just always come back to that principle. When you love something, you take the shit with the great. And I think the more balanced you are as a person, the more you can see the upsides and the downsides of anything, the more you just get on with it and you just enjoy the process of just getting better at it. Yep. And I think that's how great players play. I think that if you get too excited, you're trying to control the uncontrollables, you're going to get anxious, you're going to get stressed out, you're going to have adrenaline. That's probably not a good place. But I'd also suggest be careful of using external. I'm assuming there's a lot of listeners, who love a round of golf and don't mind a beer and other, extracurricular substances or whatever. All of that stuff, great. But again, it comes back to purpose and intention, right? Like if your intention is to go out and have fun with your mates, then great, you've achieved that outcome. So it doesn't matter what the score is. But if you're a pro golfer, I don't think having substances to try to control your emotions and shit like that. I know there are some who smoke and coffees and things like that. It could impact your game, but again, if that helps you to love the game more, then you're probably going to be more balanced with it. I feel more balanced as a person with caffeine, probably due to ADHD or whatever. But for some people like my wife, I give her, if she drinks black tea, she's fucked. Like she can't sleep for 24 hours.
Oh, really?
100%. She's highly caffeine sensitive.
Yeah.
You just have to enjoy the game, enjoy life, and take the good with the bad.
Cool. Perfect.
Love it.
Now, I just want to talk for the weekend golfers. So the average golfer is probably a little bit going out to have fun, but they always still want to get better. What's a mindset technique they can be thinking about on the way to the course to get them in a good mindset to try and shoot a lower score? Is there a sort of technique we can sort of try and use this weekend to get the mindset in the right spot?
So first thing is set the intention the day before.
Yep.
Don't do it on the day. Just set the intention the day before and go, why am I doing this? If you're a recreational golfer, are you doing it for fun? If the purpose of the game is to have fun, then have fun. If the purpose of the game is to get your score down, then that becomes the focus. But then the question is why? Why are you trying to get the score down? Does it make you feel better about yourself? Is it something is it helping you to be more focused? There's some sort of a reason as to what you're wanting out of it. So first thing is purpose. Then the next thing is okay, well, what's my intention? If I want to reduce my score am I going to reduce the score through my putting? Is it going to be through driving? Is it going to be like, what am I going to focus on? If you focus on the whole game, you're probably not really going to be that focused because you're focusing on a lot of shit.
Yep.
Again, it's going to make the game unfun and stressful and whatever. So come back to controlling the controllables. How do we have fun, which is our purpose of playing the game? And then now, how do we set an intention of a few key things that we're going to work on? And then from there, let's see if the game matches the data or the intention. And then we're just going to get data from it. So we're going to go out, we're going to still have fun. You know, if you perform worse, then come back home and don't get too stressed about it and start smashing beers and all of that stuff because now you're fucking stressed. And the whole point was to go out there and have fun, but now you're stressed as shit and you're home and the missus is pissed off and like, no, that's a downhill, you know, that's downhill pretty quick. So get back home, chill out, relax a little bit and go, okay, what went wrong? What specifically, and dial it down, not like the whole game's fucked. Because when people get emotional, it's like the whole thing is shit and I fucking hate this. And, you know, whereas like, okay, what did we do well? I think when I work with anyone in a performance state, you always have to train them to look at both benefits and drawbacks, good and bad, positive and negative. There's no such thing ever where there's just a bad without a good. That's like stupid limited thinking. And morons think like that. They think that something is just really, really bad. But as you know, in business, you can have really bad shit happen and you think that it's horrible. And then later you look back and you're like, fuck, if that didn't happen, then that would have happened and that, and now we wouldn't be better in business. And so I think you've got to get out there and go, okay, well, what did I do well? What worked? We're going to start there first. And then we're going to look at, okay, what can I tweak? What can I improve? And next game we'll tweak that. So first thing, set the purpose, then set the intention. Go out there and gather data and then come back and analyze. They're going to be like the key things that are going to help you. And then the other thing is just make sure that on the drive out to the game, you're breathing, realign yourself with your purpose and your intention, and you're good to go. Like, don't overcomplicate it. I can give you like crazy mindset fucking hacks and shit like that. But if you can't do that, we're still starting in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Just keep it simple.
And I just, that one thing when we do drive to golf, I don't think we're actually really, all the thing is like, we just want to play good. We want to play good.
Yep.
There's no real, what's the purpose of us being out here and analysing it and things like that.
And staying dialed into that as
Yeah.
well.
So some good tips.
That's a really good...
Can I just jump in?
Go on.
Because something you said was really important there, Dale. You said, you know, we want to go out and have a good game. But what does a good game mean? How do we define that? And how do we bring it back to the controllables versus like, I want to have a good game, which is sort of like meaning, well, I want it better than my last game, but I don't really have a game plan. And then at the same time, like I want to have fun and I'm going to throw a few beers in there as well.
Yep.
You know, like what's going on here? We're essentially just, we're getting a car, putting airplane wings on it and an outboard motor because we like planes, we like cars, and we like boats. And now you've got a piece of shit that doesn't.
Golf game.
Yeah, you've got a piece of shit that doesn't do anything well. So yeah, we got to decide what that is. Like if it's to have fun, just have fun. And like if you go, okay, well, what I want to do is when I'm here, I'm just going to improve my putt. Now we're dialed in. We're going to have fun for the whole day, but we're just going to tweak the putt. That's it. And then after that, you can walk away and go, cool, did I do that? Did I not? And then tweak the next game. And you can still have fun and enjoy it without smashing clubs and getting frustrated because, you know, you're a few beers deep and shit's going chaos and your mates are giving you flack because your drive was horrible. And yeah, I don't know, just keep it simple.
Well, that's part of what. So in that moment, right? So we talked a bit about longer form, like you know the day before, afterwards. But you know we've all been guilty of it. And there's millions of videos of people just overreacting in the moment. So you said there are some sort of crazy mind hacks. What can you do to help someone when they've just, you know, they just need to hit a green and they've shanked it and it's hitting the water and everyone's fucking laughing at them and you just want to snap a club over your knee?
Yep.
What's something you can do in that very moment to just kind of snap out of it and try and put it to bed and move on?
Great question. So when I'm working with someone, I train them how to do something called a break state. And a break state is that we're in an emotional state, something has to break straight away. So I'll do this with my wife sometimes. Please use this.
Dangerous.
Yeah, I was going to say, use the force for good. I do it sometimes with clients. I used to do it a lot more years ago when I was working more with people who were probably struggling mentally and emotionally a little bit. But what you want to do is you want to have a break state. And so I would mentally rehearse it because visualization is important. It's a super skill that athletes use and people use. I think like if you train yourself to think of the worst things are normally going to happen. I don't know that I have scientific data to believe in this idea of manifestation, but the word manifestation means to bring into existence. And when I think about it, I go, the things that I've always wanted, I've always got. The things, and that sounds cocky and arrogant, but when I work hard for something and I stay focused on it for long enough, it seems to work out. Now, we could call that woo-woo manifestation, or maybe it's just focus. But if we're focusing on shit's not going to work and stuff's going to go bad, I can probably guarantee it will. So we have to decide how we want to use our mind, first of all. The next thing is we go, okay, if we're going to use visualization, right, and we're going to visualize because we want a better game, then we've got to use our visualization that way to train our brain in those moments. So I would, when I'm working with someone, I go, okay, well, I want you to visualize that really shit hit. I want you to think about like the worst hit you're going to do. And I want you to think about it in the biggest crowd. And now I want you to get the emotions and the feelings. All right, cool. You're there. Now both of you are like halfway down on it, right? So go.
I can hear Dale laugh, and that's normally when
heartbeat's going.
when I shank it, it's him laughing at me.
So now go back to that place, right? Go back to that place where you just had the worst shot and it's in front of a bunch of people, like in the worst circumstance. Okay, I want you to feel what you feel. Okay, think about what you're thinking about. Hear what you hear. Now what I want you to do is grab your balls. Okay, good. And then what we'll do is we'll rehearse it. And I'll go, because see now how you laugh.
Yeah.
So now you're in this you've got this emotional intensity. And you're like, man, I fucked up and this is bad and this is bullshit. And now it's like, grab your balls. And you're like, oh man, what just fucking happened? But you practice that enough times, you shank the ball, it goes off somewhere, and you start getting frustrated. You're like, oh, this is fucking bullshit. And then all of a sudden you just start smiling and laughing. You're like, grab my balls. And now you've just changed your emotional state. You're not stuck in it. It's almost like it's the brake. It's the big key red, off button or the brake. Because as a pro athlete or as someone who there's a lot on the line with everything you do, you have to have a way of getting back into the winner's mindset like that. Yep. You can't like, if you're halfway in the middle of a basketball game, you can't just sit there and go, oh, next game will be better. Like that shit does not work. And same as in a golf game, if you've just had a couple of really shit shots and you've still got like another 12 holes to go, what are you going to do? Are you just going to give up, drive the cart back off, smash the cart into a tree? Like, what do you do? Break a club? None of that shit makes it better. So now we've got to have a break state, that big break button to make ourselves laugh. Some of the things that you could do, like Leighton Hewitt used to do, come on. That was essentially a break state. Yep. And then there are other things that I can use as well. So sometimes what I'll do is I will find in NLP or neurolinguistic programming, they talk about it as an anchor. And it's an emotional or mental anchor. Everything that we do has a neurological response. There's something in neuroscience that's called Hebb's law or Hebbian theory. And it says that circuits in the brain that fire together wire together. So we can use that theory and say, okay, if I'm playing something like a game of golf, what's a movement that I could make that would just retweak my mindset? Now, you don't want to fist pump the air or something like that. Maybe you do. But for most people, it's going to make them feel uncomfortable. So can they like slap their legs or something like that? I worked with a pro bodybuilder and he wanted to get strong with his bench press. So what we would do is I would get him to sit in a bench press position, close his eyes, visualize lifting the heaviest shit he possibly could and seeing himself like break his own records. And then when he would feel himself getting to that state of like, fuck yeah, I just did it, he would slap his legs. And the circuits in the brain that are wiring and firing, every time he hits his legs, his brain's saying high intensity emotional state, slap legs. And those two things are linking. So you could take something like a game of golf where you're frustrated and I could just keep making you laugh, like grab your balls. And all you're going to do is just slap your legs as you're standing up, as you're walking to the next green. So everyone doesn't have to know what's going on. You don't have to grab your own balls or nothing like that. I mean, that'd be, imagine that.
I need to see a pro golfer walking.
Yeah, pro golfer just take this crowd. But it could just be like a leg smack or something like that. And so they're frustrated, they breathe. I always say neutralize first. So just like jump up and down or just neutralize, just big couple of deep breaths, slap your legs and bang, they're back into that like winner's state.
All right, I'm going to go a little bit off track now. One of the questions just come to my head while you were sort of talking there. If someone was going to start their sort of mindset journey, sort of in trying to improve their mindset today, how long do you reckon someone needs before they're going to start seeing some results? I sort of know because I'm sort of 3 or 4 months into my own mindset training journey, if that's what you want to call it. Yep. And I know I've seen some changes already. But is there a time frame where someone has to put in the energy and the training and learning to then see some results, or could it be instant?
So how long's a piece of string question? You got to look at a whole bunch of different factors. So first of all, what was their past history? If they have no sporting background, they've never been exposed to it. I mean, we get a lot of people who come to our events where maybe their first point of contact is they've seen a friend who's come to an event. You know, like I work with at the moment a lot of tradies and trade-based businesses and things like that. It's pretty common that we have them. Their exposure to a lot of mindset is like zero, but they've just seen a friend who all of a sudden their business starts growing and things are changing, and they get told to come and talk to me, and they're like, what are you doing? I go, I help people perform better. And they go, oh, yeah, but I want to make money and my business. I'm like, yeah, don't we all? Yeah. And then I start explaining, like, what are the things that stress you out? Are they people? And they're like, oh, yeah, customers are fucked, staff are fucked, like everything's fucked, my missus. And I'm like, they're all people problems. It's all psychology and mindset. Like if you want to negotiate better deals, that's people. And I start explaining, they go, fuck, I never thought about it like that. And all of a sudden you see the light bulb go on. They just have had no exposure. Then there are people who potentially are pro athletes. They've been exposed to it their whole life. So they're going to change way quicker, and they might just need to fine tune. The only analogy that I can give, it's like a car. When somebody asks, what car should I get? Well, I don't know. It all depends. Some people are built like a performance supercar. Now, if you have a look at a performance supercar, they have certain traits that are beneficial and they have certain traits that aren't good. I had someone who reached out to me a couple of weeks ago and they said, I'm thinking about buying a supercar. Here's a bunch of different brands. Which one's the most reliable? And I said, the Toyota Camry. Right? If you want a reliable car, buy a fucking Camry.
Yep.
Don't buy a supercar because they're built to go as fast as shit. You don't go and buy a Formula One car that gets, a full engine rebuild after the race. But humans are the same. There are some humans that perform really, really well for short periods. Like in my business, my team know I'm a sprinter. So I work really hard, really fast, high intensity. Like I will outperform on an average day, a standard day, I will outperform 99.9% of the planet. I think fast, I move fast, I get shit done fast. But after about 3 or 4 days of operating like that, I'm cooked. Yep. So I need to have like 1 or 2 just cruisy, calm days. Whereas my wife is a marathon runner. She's a plotter. So she just wakes up in the morning, same shit she did yesterday, has the same breakfast. She's very methodical in the way she does things. Yep. She can work for like 15, 30 days straight, just, from 7, 8 o'clock in the morning to 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then eventually she needs a big rest. Everyone has their own pace and that they work at and operate at. And the same thing happens with their own mindset. Like different people operate in different ways. So some people that I work with, they just pick shit up really, really quick. Some people, it takes a little bit more time. Some people are marathon runners and they might need some tools to optimize their performance, and someone like me needs different tools. The challenge that I have with the mental performance industry, the psychology industry, is that they tend to just put everyone in one box. Someone like me who has a lot more ADHD tendencies, like I can figure shit out really quick, awesome problem solver. Even with my team, they'll start talking about a problem that we're trying to fix, and they're talking. They go, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing this," and I'm like, "Yeah, I get it." And they go, "No, but I've got like a full detailed plan." I'm like, "Yeah, I get it. I already know I've already figured shit out. Like I know, I just needed to know a couple of key points. Like I've already figured it out." So I can analyze things really, really quickly in most cases, which is why I'm really good at human behavior. But when it comes to doing like methodical shit, horrible at it. So everyone has their own pace, their own space. And for someone like me, when I've gone and worked with different sort of coaches or different people in the psychology industry, they would tell me that I'm too intense. I need to slow down. I need to relax more. I need to like de-stress and decompress. But that shit stresses me out even more. Like, there's probably a bunch of people who are listening like this. Like the way you operate is just the way you operate. And so I think, first of all, self-acceptance is so important. Like every one of us is unique in a way, even though we're very predictable. We're unique and you have your own way of operating, but you also have your own speed of learning. You have your own speed of change. Sometimes it takes a long, long time for someone to get to a point where they know that they need to change, but when they make that decision, bang, everything takes off. Yeah. Sometimes someone like my wife, she's, again, that methodical learner. So she'll have to hear things over and over and over again, whereas I get an idea and bang, I'm off. And I don't know that I gave a clear answer on that question, but it's different for everyone, obviously. Yeah, some people just have to be in the environment. Some people get it really, really quickly. I think personally, if you're around someone who's good at what they do, a good coach, you should be able to see results pretty quick.
Yep.
You know, like with you guys, you just needed a bit of direction and a few like key tweaks, and bang, you guys are off.
Yep.
But that's because I know your personalities. You're both different, but similar as well. Whereas I think if you go to the wrong person or the wrong people to learn from, they'll project their values or their way of operating onto you and say that, you know, you need to operate, you know, in their way of doing things. And I know I'm going to go off track with this, but I had a client only 2 days ago there having some relationship issues. And he said they went to a therapist or whatever. And he's a business owner. He runs, I mean, his business is probably $30 million in revenue. In the last 2 years since he's been working with me, he's probably gone from maybe about 4 or 5. So it's grown quite quickly. He's an intense dude. That's how he operates. Now, his wife is the calming force. She's the relaxed one, you know, and I think in relationships, having a counterbalancer is good. In a way, they go see a therapist. The therapist said, you're putting too much time into your business. You need to be more family focused, and you can't have a high value business. And so that therapist was projecting her value of family onto him, telling him that he was wrong by having a high value of business and not prioritizing his family as being the most important thing.
Yep.
But to him, being really good at business is the most important thing because that's what provides for his family.
Yep.
It is really, really hard to be good in this industry and not project your shit onto other people.
Yeah.
You get good by trying to figure out how to get the best out of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So you coach some high performers in business, and we talk about structures and processes and things of that nature. And then you mentioned Josh Saunders, which I listened to on the podcast recently.
Yep.
And he told a story about Kobe and how he would shoot and he wouldn't consider the outcome. You know, he'd obviously put in so much work that once the ball's in the air, it's out of his hands and he would move on. So I guess combining those 2 points, what are some lessons from the business world that can be applied to the mental game of golf?
They're all the same thing, right? Business is the same as golf. Golf is the same as business. Business is the same as life. Like, they're all the same patterns, really. You know, like I've spoken about purpose and intention. You can take that to any field, whether it's business, whether it's sport. Like someone says, I'm going to start a business so that I can create more free time. And I go, okay, fair enough. 2 months into the business, their free time's fucking gone. Why? Because now they're trying to make shit tons of money. And now what they've done is they've put an extra process in. They go, if I can make shitloads of money, then I'll have more free time. But the truth is you can have free time without having money. I mean, there are plenty of people who woke up this morning, their number one priority was free time, and they woke up at 1:30 in the afternoon, had a bong, ate last night's pizza, and they're watching Jerry Springer right now, right? Their number one priority. They're winning the game of life because their purpose was, I don't want to work, I don't want to do shit, I don't want to have any any challenge. They've won, right? Because they're on track. I think what tends to happen in both business and sport and things like that is that they get overcomplicated because we set an intentional, we have an intentional, we have an outcome that we're trying to achieve. And life can be exactly the same as well, by the way. We have an intention and we have a purpose or something like that. And then all of a sudden we start confusing it and we start moving barriers and metrics and things like that. Like the person who says, I'm starting a business so that I can do what I want and have all this freedom, yet they want to grow a $100 million business where now they're responsible for every staff member. They've got thousands of staff. They've got to do taxation, legal, accounting, all of that stuff. You know, the amount of people who come to me, especially business owners, and they say, you know, I want to have more freedom, but I want to build a bigger business. And big pardon, I want to have financial freedom. And I'm like, there's no such thing. I've worked with some of the top rich listers, right? And I've worked with billionaires. I've worked with people that make hundreds of millions of dollars. Not one of them has ever said to me that they want financial freedom, because the more money you make, the more risk there is, the more challenges, the more adversities. You just get better at handling it. And
no one sues a broke person, do they?
That's always my comeback, right? I'm like, no one is ever going to sue a broke person. They only sue rich people. So shit gets harder the more you improve in any area of life. Everything gets harder, but you get better. And so the focus has to be on you getting better. But I think the crossover between business and sport is that in order to be good at anything, you have to understand why you're doing it in the first place. Like if you want to be good at business, your priority cannot be, I don't want to work in the business. That's fucking stupid. It makes no sense. if you want to get good at business, you have to enjoy the game of business. If you want to get good at sport, you have to enjoy the game of sport. There's no point me saying, well, I want to be a basketballer so that I can make shit tons of money so that then I don't have to play basketball. Like it's fucking stupid, right? You can tell I spend a lot of time by myself. I don't have any friends. I just sit here and think about all the nuances of life. It just comes down to really enjoying the game, being intentional, being purposeful, reminding yourself that as you get better at anything, things become more complicated. But you get better at handling those complications. There's something which is in physics is called the law of entropy, and it's that things become more chaotic. If you want to get better at anything, you have to be able to figure out how to turn the chaos into order and structure in order to be able to grow and scale. And so like if you're just an amateur golfer and you go out and I'll bring it back to golf. If you're an amateur golfer and you just go out with your buddies and you have a hit and stuff, like who gives a fuck what your clubs are? It doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about whether you've got sponsors logos on, whether your team are managing you correctly, whether you're getting paid properly. You don't have to, there's no intricacies. You just go out there, have a hit, you come home. But by the time you get to pro, you got to have a good team of people around you. You got to look after your body effectively. You got to make sure that sponsors are getting looked after. You've got all these responsibilities and accountabilities. Everything gets more complicated, which is why you get paid more because it's so much harder. It doesn't get easier. It gets harder as you get better. But you get better, which is why you have the ability to manage those challenges and to be able to put more structure around you or whatever you're trying to grow in. So I guess they're the crossovers. Like really, sport is a business. We were talking earlier about one of the DJs that I interviewed, Uberjack, who was a client of mine. It still is a client of mine. But he never treated himself like a business. He was a DJ who went out and had fun and partied and run amok and, sex, drugs and rock and roll. And then all of a sudden COVID hits and he's broke and has nothing and shit gets really real, really quick. When I sat him down, I'm like, it's a business. Just run it like a business. Think about it like a business. He went, fuck, I've never thought about my career as a business. And I was like, well, okay, well, we're starting off on the... So I think life just has fundamental principles. If you stick to them, it doesn't matter whether what you do. So again, it's that whole love thing. Do what you love. Don't chase your passions. Like I hear every fucking moron who's on the speaking circuit or someone who's doing mindset courses say, you got to follow your passions. If you just fucking study what the word passion means, it means to suffer. Marcus Aurelius in his great book Meditation says, don't follow your passions, like avoid the passions, because they're a smokescreen. We think that things are going to be better and easy and fun and shit like that until you have the repercussions. And everything that's fun and exciting has repercussions. But everything that is challenging and painful and stuff also has a reward. So, love is that center point between both.
Awesome. Yep. All right. One of my favorite episodes of your podcast, and I texted you the other day and told you, is the gap versus the game versus game episode.
Yep.
Can you quickly explain to the listeners what gap versus game means and how you can sort of apply it to the golfer's mindset?
Yeah. So my wife put me onto this book, and it's not my concept. It was one by a guy called Benjamin Hardy, and it's called Gap and Gain.
Yeah.
But when she said it, she said gap and gain, but because we've got the South Australian twang in our voice, I thought she said game. So she's telling me about this idea of being in the game, which she meant the gain or the gap. And so I created that podcast without realizing what she's really, then I went and read the book and I was like, fuck. But what it was that in life, we're either in the gap or the game. Now, in the game, you're playing the game. And that is where you get your gain. When you're in the gap, you're stuck in between something. So it could be like you might be frustrated or you're stressed out because your reality of where you're at right now isn't matching the expectations. So that's the gap that's been created. And I think if anyone's listening to this podcast, I assume that anyone who drives around listening to a podcast probably wants to be better or wants some form of improvement or, some form of entertainment or whatever. So I'd assume most people are listening because they want to grow and want to be better or want to improve something. But what can happen with people that are high performers or people that I call driven mofos is that they consistently creating gaps. They go, well, I want to make a shit ton more money and my business is here. And so therefore I've got to work really, really hard and push myself. But the problem is you're always living in the gap. And the gap is that where I'm at right now isn't good enough. Yeah. And I'm not good enough and I'm not achieving enough. And so there's never enough. And then that becomes your psychology. The challenge with that though is, and I've worked with hundreds of business owners, if not thousands, who are stuck in this place where nothing is enjoyable. Life's not enjoyable because they're always chasing something.
Yeah.
And ambitious people naturally use that for motivation and drive. So they're highly driven, highly ambitious, but then they burn out. You know, they're using drugs and alcohol trying to buy back some sort of like pleasure, or they're buying shit all the time, like new cars and fucking jet skis and all this shit. They're doing it because they're always living in the gap. Life isn't enjoyable without those external things. When you come back into the game's the game. So you decided to play the game. So if you decided to start a business, that's the game. So now let's just have fun and enjoy the process of building the business, which means that the enjoyment is, yeah, there's challenges because there's always challenges. There's a problem, but we solve a problem and then we create another problem and we keep going, and that's business growth. So when you play the game, you're actually in it. When there's a gap, it's that the expectation doesn't meet reality. And sport can have a lot of that as well. Like the moment you stop enjoying a round of golf it's because you've created a gap inside of your own mind.
Yeah.
You're looking at it going, well, I was expecting to hit that ball really, really well, and now I'm 3 or 4 shots behind, and my mates are doing better, and now, you know, depending on how far you go down that rabbit hole, the whole game's fucked because you just created a gap.
Yeah.
You're just not dealing with what is. You had a couple of shit shots, but hey, it's another shot. Let's have some fun. It comes back to like getting aligned with that purpose and the intention. So yeah, that's sort of the gap in the game. The more you can stay in the game, the more you play the game, the more you're in the gap, the more you're just in a fucking sinkhole of shit.
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially for some pro golfers that might not be going as well as they can. You know, they've got the ability and everything like that, but all they're thinking about is, oh, I'm not doing this, I'm not putting well, I'm not doing this.
Yep.
But they forget about all the things they've done really, really well. So it's very easy to get in that mindset. So, yeah, it is a really good podcast. Obviously, you explain it a lot more detail on the podcast. So
Yeah.
I recommend going to search that one on the Underestimated Entrepreneur if anyone's looking for more detail around that.
There's 2 really cool things that 2 people said to me when I was in the US doing my podcast tour over there. One of them was Mike Rashid, and the other one was a guy called Yaros. Mike Rashid is ex-felon, professional boxer, awesome dude. But his dad was a philosopher. So his real dad was a philosopher, and then his mum's husband was like one of the biggest drug dealers in Brooklyn. So he grew up with like both worlds. But he said to me, we were just having a chat, and I think he said it on the podcast, but he said, I'm not successful because I have money. I have money because I am successful.
Yeah.
It's a 180-degree switch that most people don't think about. He is successful, which is why he has money. When you realize you are the thing that you want, life just becomes fun. You just play the game. And then the other thing was Yaros. Yaros was this average Spanish kid that wasn't rich, wasn't broke. His family were always like really working class, but almost like lower end working class, like not middle income working class. And he just traveled around the world and sort of tried to learn things, but eventually he became a fitness coach. And yesterday he just bought a brand new Pagani, and I saw him on Instagram, and he had that parked next to his Bugatti Veyron and his Lambo and all that. So the guy is like worth fucking a ton of money, prints money. But one of his key philosophies is that you have to stay in almost like a neutral place of just enjoying things. And the moment that you start putting pressure on yourself, you automatically change into a different mindset. And so most people live in a mindset where they never have enough. So they're in a lack of mindset. And then they go, well, I don't have enough money. That's the reason why I have to make more money. But when they make more money, they still don't have enough money because they just keep changing their goals anyway. And so they always live in this world of lack. I think that that's one of the biggest challenges, and all great philosophies and religions have spoken about it for thousands of years, right? Is that it's not until you appreciate what you've got that you actually get to appreciate more. It's just such a beautiful concept. And it's not until you enjoy what you've already got that you get to enjoy more of what you want. And as you know, like I'm a car guy, so I've got a supercar and all that type of stuff. And a lot of people come up to me and they're like, oh man, I would love to have one of those cars. But you can tell it's from a place of desperation. They're desperate for attention. They're desperate because they think that the car's going to make them feel good about life. But the truth is, you're going to buy a car. It's a prick to drive around. You can't fucking park it anywhere because you're afraid someone's going to hit it. People get pissed off at you. Like the amount of times I've been called a dickhead just because I'm driving a fucking supercar is unbelievable. Like everything that you think is going to happen, the opposite is going to happen. So if you attach a weird idea or ideology of what you expect is going to happen because you're needy, you're fucked. And life is always like that. Like the most depressed, miserable people, there's no correlation between having more money and not being depressed. Some of the most depressed people I've come across are those with a lot of money because they think that money's going to get rid of that neediness or the lack or the things aren't good enough or I'm not there yet or their insecurities. And the truth is you're just an insecure motherfucker. Like, work on that. After that, life becomes fun.
The money just amplifies the issues.
100%. Everything external amplifies. So it does. The better car just amplifies your insecurities around money. You know, my wife always used to say to me, and I know I've gone off the track from golf and the question and shit, but I think it relates to it. Just bring yourself back to why you do what you do all the time. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I playing golf? Why am I having fun? Why am I having, like, what's important to me? Because I really believe that when you're grateful for what you've got, you get more. And that's been spoken about for thousands of years in every major religion, in every philosophy. And then if you enjoy the process and all the challenges and shit that come up in your life, you enjoy it even more. And the same thing for golf, the same thing for sport. Like, just get into the habit of just enjoying what you've got, and I guarantee you'll get more and it'll become more enjoyable and everything just amplifies.
Yep.
So I hope that gave an answer to the question in a roundabout term and a roundabout way, but I hope it's making people think.
Yeah, awesome.
I'll be described as the woo-woo guy in the golf podcast.
Now, we're probably nearly time to wrap up. I did text you yesterday, and I wanted you to have a think about this question. I want you to give, and it doesn't have to be golf related. It can be just whatever you've got. A golden nugget of advice for the listeners at home to leave with today.
Yeah.
What do you got for us?
I get asked this question a lot, and not that specific question, but I get asked about the greatest piece of advice that I've ever been given or ever come across. And this piece of advice has been the same advice that's been around for thousands of years, and that is know thyself, be thyself.
Yep.
Because that's all you can be.
Yep.
I think way too many people in this day and age, especially with social media, are always trying to be something that they're not.
Yeah.
And it is hard. There's something that Sigmund Freud spoke about, the famous psychiatrist. He spoke about something called implanted values, where the moment you look up to somebody, you start looking down upon yourself and you realize you're not good enough. I think the hardest thing that we all have to go through is, and I think the actual purpose, the real purpose of life is to, first of all, learn and grow. And then the second thing is to figure out who you are. And I think we're all on that journey of just figuring out who we are. Some are closer than others, but you know, it's just be thyself, know thyself.
Awesome. That's a great bit of advice, and leave us with something to think about. So thanks for sitting down in your first ever golf podcast. That was a wonderful episode, and hopefully some knowledge bombs for everyone to take home and listen. And if they want to find out a little bit about you, where's the best place to find you?
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans?
Sorry, I just had to throw that one in there. You definitely don't. It'll be the worst 3 seconds you ever watch. My website is michaelmojo.com.
Yep.
You can follow me on Instagram or socials. I think it's michaelmojo_success on Facebook, Instagram, all that, or it's michaelmojo00, one of those two.
Yep.
Just anyone who's listening to this who has any questions or whatever, or just want to send me death threats, just make sure to do it through social media, and I'll get them. But no, please hit me up if anyone's got any questions.
No worries. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Awesome.